Good evening. Collingwood is under fire from its own supporters tonight, with the Magpies accused of preying on their older members. The Pies sent letters to fans aged over 50, including some with life-threatening illnesses, giving them an easy option to rewrite their wills and bequeath money to the club.
There are two certainties in life, death and taxes. Collingwood wants to add one more.
Asking to just be part of the club still and leave them in your will when you die. Paige
Cardona's dad is a lifelong Pies supporter. He's also battling leukemia.
My dad's received it and he's battling cancer. There's lots of costs associated with that too, so it feels pretty awful.
The letter he received instructs him how to amend his will to benefit the club, saying it's easy to make changes so you can include Collingwood.
If there is inheritance there, you would think that that would usually fall to, children, partners, family first and foremost, and not a football club that's doing all right for itself.
Lorraine Boating has been a Magpie 77 years and says the club has its claws in members' coffers.
Money. Everything is for money. And I'd like it to come back to how it used to be for the people.
Most AFL clubs have a bequest program but don't solicit members, much less provide a service to change their legal will. And Collingwood's program specifically targets older members.
I've seen the letter and I think it's gone a little bit too far, but yeah, there is a line to cross and I think it's been crossed.
Collingwood isn't acting out of financial desperation though, in fact, far from it. The Pies are the most valuable AFL brand in Australia, currently worth about $130 million.
It feels really audacious of the footy club to sort of expect that people are willing to do this.
In an AFL die-hard city, you've got to ask, how much does a club need to feather its own nest?
The club's way and not our way, and it's wrong.
And Laura Turner has an update. Laura, the club has this evening issued an apology.
Yeah, just a short time ago, Mitch, the CEO, Craig Kelly, penned this statement. We sincerely apologise to anyone who felt upset or uncomfortable receiving this communication, particularly supporters currently navigating difficult circumstances. Our intention was to offer members the option to consider a legacy gift if they wish, something that is commonplace across many AFL clubs and organisations. So the club isn't changing its policy, Mitch. They're just saying they're sorry.
Laura Turner, thank you. The Premier has threatened to cut short her news conference today as the CFMEU scandal reaches boiling point. Jacinta Allen lost her cool and demanded a retraction that never arrived.
An under-strain Premier in an extraordinary standoff.
No. I think because I'm not going to stand here and be accused of something I haven't done.
A heated media conference brought to a halt in a press gallery grilling about victims of alleged corruption on big build sites.
They don't feel they can report it because they have already uprooted their lives for fear of people that are no longer in the CFMEU but are controlling the CFMEU. You look disinterested.
I'll make 2 points on this. And can I ask that you retract that last point?
Well, Premier, I'm really sorry.
No, you're not. Could I ask that you retract that last comment? I would ask that you retract that last comment.
When 7 News tried to move things along,
I'd ask that Jess retracts that observation. It's up to you if you don't want to do it. I'll take your silence that you agree that you have retracted your statement, because in the interests of supporting your colleagues, I will allow this to continue.
The fiery exchanges rolled on in the chamber.
Why is the Premier bullying journalists who are asking legitimate questions about the worst corruption scandal in Victorian history?
It's a bit much coming from someone whose party bullied their former deputy leader right out of the place.
Jacinta Allen denies there's rising anxiety about the CFMEU scandal among Labor ranks, despite repeated calls for a royal commission, a call now backed by every upper house MP, bar Labor.
The Premier must listen to the Parliament.
The royal commission that was held went on for years and years and achieved nothing.
Despite presenting a united front on camera, calls for a royal commission are now coming from within Labor's own ranks, several MPs and ministers pushing for action behind the scenes.
As for reports the Deputy Premier may be gunning for the Premier's job,
I will be the Education Minister at the next election.
Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
A teenager has been stabbed in a violent brawl at a shopping centre in Geelong. Police received several calls to 000 as a fight broke out at the Market Square around 3:30 this afternoon. A 17-year-old was rushed to hospital with serious injuries. By the time police arrived, the other person involved, as well as witnesses, had all fled. One very lucky patron has walked away from a terrifying pub plunge in Melbourne's east. He crept onto the roof of the venue, then fell straight through the skylight in front of shocked onlookers.
Dropping into the Tower Hotel, an unlucky patron falls through the ceiling in Hawthorn East.
Nothing good happens after midnight. I don't know how, but he's ended up in the sports bar on his backside.
It was just before 1 a.m. on Tuesday. Staff were unaware the customer had climbed onto the roof with his colleagues before the skylight gave way.
Long way.
Fortunately, he got straight up, which is an absolute miracle. Popped his Birkenstocks back on as a priority and continued his night.
The owner of the hotel, now dubbed the Avo King after this viral video at the football, says this is the wildest thing he's seen at the venue in 26 years.
It's silly if you ask me.
The Tower Hotel spoke with the patron and says aside from a sore head, he's expected to make a full recovery.
I'm told no fractures, no breaks. He's a very, very lucky boy.
Despite the mishap, the pub holds no hard feelings.
He's welcome to come back here, but yeah, perhaps if he just uses the main entrance and stays on the ground floor, then everything will be well.
Ainsley Kosh, 7 News.
Some of the greats of Australian motorsport have lashed out at the decision to move the MotoGP from Victoria to South Australia. The decision was simple, according to our GP boss. Now the Allen government is racing to find a replacement event for Phillip Island.
Burnouts in Adelaide leave Phillip Island smoked out. South Australia's capital confirmed today as new host of Australia's MotoGP, a first ever street circuit through the city.
The young South Australians in particular that once upon a time looked to Sydney and Melbourne to move to find some action and life, well now they get to have it all here at home.
Victoria wanted to keep it but not move it to Albert Park.
As a principled decision, we were just not willing to sell out Phillip Island.
Now we've lost it altogether. Race organisers say Adelaide will do just fine.
By no account is it a second choice.
Victoria's Tourism Industry Council says it'll have serious consequences for regional jobs and small businesses. It leaves our Grand Prix Corporation with one race to look after, next month's Formula One.
It wasn't about money. At the end of the day, Dorna wanted a street circuit, and that's the vision they have for MotoGP, and Phillip Island's not a street circuit.
Former Aussie racer Casey Stoner questions why would MotoGP take possibly their best circuit off the calendar? I'll let everyone decide.
Everybody will be deeply disappointed. I mean, Phillip Island's been one of the favourites for a very, very long time.
It's just not right. They've done it all wrong.
Will you take your statue back?
Oh, no, I might jam it up their actually. So.
Oh, no.
Organisers say Phillip Island was great until it wasn't.
Challenges on the weather and the location and, on just access and accommodation, which are very difficultly solved in Phillip Island.
To go to Melbourne, to rent a car, to transit your whole family out to the island, rent a house, it's upwards of 6,000-7,000.
32 years since Jeff Kennett announced we'd scored it off New South Wales. The job now, find its replacement.
Live to Blake Johnson at the Albert Park circuit, and Blake, the MotoGP replacement might have nothing to do with motorsport.
No, it might not, Peter, but the Australian Grand Prix Corporation will still likely be involved in helping to find an event that'll need to plug what it will become a $54 million hole in Victoria's economy. This could also become an election issue. We have an election a month after the final MotoGP at Phillip Island, and the local seat down there of Bass is held by Labor by just 202 votes. Pete?
Blake Johnson at Albert Park, thank you. Gel blasters and slingshots have been found at the home of a man accused of making threats to kill Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers. The 55-year-old Sydney man was arrested after allegedly making threatening calls to the MP's office. He has been refused bail. A business has gone up in smoke in Abbotsford. Firefighters arrived to find flames billowing through the roof before they battled the blaze from above. Crews then used an angle grinder to get into the building to tackle the flames inside. Fire investigators are working to establish the cause. The Prime Minister says he has nothing but contempt for the groups of ISIS brides trying to return from a Syrian camp with their children. But despite his refusal to help, the government may have no choice but to let them in.
Celebrating Chinese New Year, turning dumpling designer marking the Year of the Horse.
Can I get a job if this politics thing doesn't work out?
After ramping up the politics thing to maximum about the ISIS brides.
I have nothing but contempt for these people.
These people being the 11 brides, he clarifies, not the 23 children they're trying to bring back with them.
I have contempt for their parents who have put these children in that situation.
Though providing them passports, he says, a legal obligation, denying any other help to get them home.
What would your approach be if you were PM in this whole situation with the ISIS guys?
Shut the door.
3 words
Shut the door.
used 7 times.
Shut the door. They should shut the door. We need to see this government shut the door.
The government has placed a temporary exclusion order on one ISIS bride.
Why not elsewhere? Why not for others?
Because the law sets a high bar, a law introduced by the Morrison cabinet Angus Taylor served in, one never intended to exclude ISIS families from returning to Australia, just to keep a close eye on them when they did.
On an effective parole type arrangement, which would mean that we could keep them under close monitoring, reporting and surveillance.
Laws his party is now criticising as inadequate.
If it is the case that our laws allow ISIS fighters or their supporters to come back to Australia, then the laws need changing.
There's been some pretty silly behaviour from the opposition, hypocrisy. They're complaining now about laws that they voted for.
Since 2013, about 80 ISIS fighters, brides and children have returned and only 10 have been charged. The number convicted and jailed, the AFP says, unknown.
You have to be able to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt, and you have to collect that evidence from countries like Syria.
Not an easy task. Mark Riley, 7 News. 8 backcountry skiers are now confirmed dead after being buried by an avalanche in the Northern California mountains. The group was being led on a 3-day expedition near Lake Tahoe when a powerful winter storm moved through. Search crews battled blizzard conditions to rescue 6 survivors.
Some equipment with them trying to not only stay warm, but they had medical issues as well.
1 skier remains unaccounted for. Hawthorn's modern-day heroes have thrown their arms around the legendary Peter Hudson, inviting him back to the club for an 80th birthday surprise. After a career filled with accomplishments, Hudson said today was one of the greatest honours of his life.
80 years young and still the most revered man at Hawthorn.
Happy birthday to you.
727 goals from just 129 games, including a 150-goal season. It's a resume few, if any, can rival, but today it was the legend who was in awe.
I'd heard a rumour there was going to be a photo, but I didn't know what the photo was going to be, so big surprise.
60th birthday, yeah?
Yeah, that'll do.
Far from the facilities of the 70s, Hudson was amazed by the new Dingley headquarters he helped fundraise for.
This would go down as arguably the greatest thrill I've ever had in football to see this. It's just beyond belief.
There were a few trips down memory lane.
In Hobart, I played one day and kicked 18 goals and got 2 votes.
18 goals. Takes me about 6 weeks to kick 18 goals. Did you pass off any goal assists or no?
No, I didn't believe in that.
The duo also reminiscing about Hudson's famous return to Waverley in 1973 after nearly 2 years out of the game with injury, where he arrived via helicopter after being flown in from Tasmania and kicked 8 goals.
They were going to bring me over on a Friday and shoot me back straight after the game, back to Hobart, where I had my hotel. And I said, I can't come on the Friday. They said, why? I said, I've got Norman Gunston appearing at my hotel. So the way I've always looked at it, there are two Gunstons. One's appeared at my hotel and the other one hasn't. So
He might not have Norman Gunston appearing tonight, but he'll certainly find a front bar celebrating 80 of the best years Australian football has seen.
A couple of beers tonight, Ardo. I'll come round.
if you need me, I'll be available.
Xander Maguire, 7 News.